Normally you spend a lot of money with drilling and blasting rock. And this rock is it's soft enough that you can dig it freely with excavators, but it's hard enough that the walls hold up and you can like open pit it. So it's kind of like a perfect scenario in that standpoint.
Have you heard the news? Parker Schnabel, yes, that Parker, just pulled off something the mining world wasn't ready for. No crew, no big TV production, just him and a frozen patch of Yukon ground. And it turned into one of the biggest gold hauls ever recorded, worth an estimated $348 million. This wasn't planned. It wasn't even supposed to be a major dig. He went out to test a quiet spot, alone, with nothing but his gut. Then the dirt started shining, and everything changed. We're talking massive gold veins in untouched ground, numbers so high that even die-hard miners called it impossible. The kind of strike people dream about, but never actually see. No hype, no crowds, just Parker versus the Yukon. And the Yukon lost. So how did he find it? Why was he alone? And how did one night turn into a record-breaking fortune that's shaken the entire mining industry from Alaska to Australia? Let's break it down, because what happened out there could rewrite how gold hunters work forever. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. This one is unbelievable. The Yukon winter does not welcome outsiders. Even seasoned miners fear its breath. Yet, in early January 2024, when the season had long been surrendered to snow and silence, a forgotten voice resurfaced. An aging prospector named Eldon Moore, known for more failures than fortune, whispered to Parker Schnabel of a river bend where colors shimmered beneath sheets of frozen gravel, glints of gold trapped under centuries of ice-packed sediment. Most dismissed Eldon's words as the final ramblings of a man who had chased too many ghosts. But Parker didn't laugh. He listened. Something in Eldon's description, the angle of the bend, the known glacial push from the McKinley Range, the old placer drift maps, formed a pattern in Parker's mind. If the river truly shifted ages ago, it could have sealed a paleo channel untouched since the last great thaw, and that meant untapped gold, not ounces, but caches. He could have sent a team, could have surveyed, sampled, waited. But instinct doesn't wait for committees. So in the silent pre-dawn of February 3rd, 2024, he dragged a single excavator onto a trailer, headlights boring into the white void. The road to Eldon's riverbend was barely more than a memory, swallowed by drifts taller than a man. He pushed forward alone. No camera crew, no booming machines, just him and the growl of diesel. The site lay hidden behind jagged spruce, where the river had frozen still, trapped beneath a lid of crystal blue ice. Parker scraped carefully, layer by layer, refusing to let haste swallow caution. Beneath 2 feet of frost, he found it, ancient gravel, untouched, virgin. He collected a scoop, melting the ice beside a small propane flame. The first pan shivered gold, not flakes, not dust, but coarse, chunky nuggets weighing multiple grams each. Parker's pulse hammered in his ears. This wasn't just a claim. It was history. He worked through the night, alone under the spectral greens of the northern lights. Every test pan struck gold, average density approaching 8 to 12 ounces per cubic yard, unheard of even in the Klondike's greatest days. That meant that beneath him could lie hundreds of thousands of yards of high-grade pay, a fortune beyond imagination. By the next sunrise, his tally from just 12 hours of careful test recovery had reached nearly $1.6 million, a number so unreal that even Parker doubted his own calculations. But the purity, the weight, the coarse character, all confirmed this was no fluke. This was a buried river from another age, a treasure sealed in ice. Yet the cold did not relent. Nor did Parker. He marked GPS boundaries, analyzed sediment layering, logged sample purity, 92 to 94% pure Yukon gold, and prepared for the impossible, because every sign pointed to a yield so enormous that even Parker, who had dug millions from the earth, felt small beneath it. But as the river whispered its ancient secret, another truth emerged. The underground channel extended beyond the bend, deeper into the valley, and where the ice thickened, the signal grew stronger, richer, heavier. The discovery required silence, caution, and absolute secrecy, because gold doesn't just attract miners, it attracts war. So while Parker recorded his test results, he also scanned upstream, seeing not just a frozen river, but a frontier where $348 million in buried treasure waited to decide the fate of every miner who dared touch it. And just as he prepared to call in his crew, the valley changed, as if alive. The ice began to crack, whispering warnings from the frozen ages beneath. And that's where the second outline begins. The moment Parker realizes that the river wasn't finished speaking, and his journey into the heart of the hidden gold world had only just begun. The claim Parker discovered in early February 2024 was unlike anything he had ever studied. While most miners waited for spring thaw, he pushed forward, knowing the frozen ground often holds the deepest truth. The first cuts came slowly, each bucketful dragged through layers of permafrost, hardened over thousands of winters. The steel teeth of his excavator screeched like blades on stone. Even machinery seemed to struggle, as if the earth itself refused to surrender. He began stripping overburden at barely 20 yards per hour, less than half the pace of a standard cut. The ice had fused the riverbed to ancient clay, forming a stubborn seal that guarded everything below. As he worked, Parker logged every detail: soil temperatures sinking to minus 18 degrees Celsius, pay layers thickening toward the east, and gold concentrations rising beyond any of his early projections. But with each slow pass, the ground began to change. A dark, heavy slurry pushed upward from below, groundwater trapped under frozen caps for centuries. Within hours, meltwater flooded the cut, turning the entire operation into a sucking swamp of silt and ice. Tracks vanished. Diesel engines strained against mud that seemed alive. Every sign the earth gave felt like a warning. Parker killed the machine. The forest went silent. Even the river seemed to hold its breath. For a moment, it felt like trespass, like someone had been meant to arrive here long before mankind learned to mine. But his readings were undeniable. In the first 12 hours of excavation, even under freezing floodwater, Parker recovered 56 ounces of coarse placer, nearly $120,000, from just the cleanup of erosion channels along the cut. That alone was historic. Most operations fight for 1 to 2 ounces per 100 yards. Here, those numbers appeared in handfuls, mixed deep into the ancient river gravel. So he pushed again, but slower, carefully trenching around the unstable perimeter rather than rushing the center. His logs show extraction depths reaching 18 feet, richer with every layer. The gold's purity hovered at 93.5%, with nuggets the size of chestnuts, suggesting a concentrated paleo channel untouched since the last glacial retreat nearly 11,000 years ago. The more he removed, the more the ground resisted, like something buried wanted to stay buried. He worked alone, just one man against the ice, knee-deep in freezing mud beneath dim headlamps. He moved methodically, collecting samples, measuring grade density, mapping flow direction. By dawn, The tally had climbed past $910,000 in a single night. The earth seemed alive, shifting beneath his boots. A low crack echoed from the far wall, ice layers shearing under pressure. The forest stilled again. A warning or an invitation? Where most miners would have called off the operation, Parker pressed deeper. History had wrapped itself around this valley, bones of ancient sediment locking secrets far beneath human touch. Something was waiting under that frozen lid, something that didn't want to be taken, not by force. Still, he continued because he felt it, a strange certainty that this discovery belonged to him alone. Whether fate or obsession guided him, the deep river of gold pulled him onward. Then his ground-penetrating scans traced a buried formation stretching farther downstream, thicker, denser, richer, a vein so massive that the numbers nearly broke calculation models. And as he stepped toward this new direction, water quiet beneath him, a deeper hum resonated through the ice, guiding him toward what would soon be known as the greatest dig of his life. By February 14th, 2024, 02:47 a.m., under a haze of freezing mist, Parker made the pass that would transform the night into legend. His excavator bucket dipped beneath the permafrost shelf, striking bedrock with a hollow clank. At first, he thought it was just another frozen block, until the metal teeth peeled away a sheet of black host rock to reveal a glowing streak beneath. What shone back at him looked unreal. A gold-rich quartz vein, shimmering as if lit from within, ran diagonally through the schist. The reflection bounced off the ice walls, coloring the entire cut with the soft burn of molten fire. Parker froze. Even through thick gloves, he could feel the heat of adrenaline racing to his fingertips. He sampled fast, scraping loose fragments into a tray, then rushed them to a portable wash station. The test run defied every rule of geology. The pans filled with bright, unweathered gold, flakes so pure they seemed hammered yesterday. Yet their structure suggested they had slept untouched since the last age of ice. His early readings were nothing short of staggering. Gold purity clocked in at an unbelievable 95.1%, with density levels pushing nearly 20.3 grams per ton, far beyond anything normally seen in the Klondike. The nuggets coming out ranged from pea-size all the way to cherry-sized chunks, each one proof that this was no ordinary ground. As Parker traced the line, the vein revealed itself at roughly 2.6 meters wide and stretching an initial 51 meters beneath his feet. This wasn't placer gold washed down by time. It wasn't drift either. This was hard rock, a true motherlode locked in place for millennia, feeding the valley below like a hidden artery of pure fortune. Each scoop brought more, thicker, brighter. He worked with surgical precision, clearing stone with brushes instead of buckets, refusing to let recklessness steal this moment. He tagged each fragment, logged GPS coordinates, and stacked core samples like ancient bones brought back to the living. By 5:30 a.m., Parker weighed his first rough tally, 312 ounces, nearly $680,000, from just the loose material along the exposed seam. No mine had produced a number like that in a single night since the late Klondike peak of 1899. It felt as if lightning had been captured in stone, waiting for the right hands to release it. The deeper he followed the vein, the more the boundary between man and mountain blurred. He stopped thinking like a miner and started listening, adjusting pressure, bucket angle, even breathing, to avoid shattering the delicate structure. The discovery felt alive, and every move carried a risk. Uncover riches or destroy history. This was no pocket. This was a channel. a buried artery of gold shaped by ancient rivers, trapped when glaciers sealed the valley. And now, after over 10,000 years, Parker was the first to touch it. As dawn crept over the Yukon, the golden seam continued, plunging deeper into the darkness of the northern wall. His scanners picked up a branching signal, multiple veins feeding from a single core, richer than the first, pulsing beneath the black stone like veins beneath skin. The night had already given him what most miners spend lifetimes chasing, but the mountain wasn't finished. Its last gate waited ahead, where fire-colored stone became shadow, and the storm gathered once again, preparing to test whether even this miracle could be held by human hands. The moment Parker traced the gold vein deeper into the black wall of ancient rock, the night shifted. By February 15th, 2024, 12:10 a.m., the sky over the Yukon turned violent. Clouds rolled in like dark armor, sealing the stars. A thin hiss of snow became a roar of freezing rain, and within minutes, the mining cut began to flood. The storm did not arrive like weather. It arrived like judgment. Parker scrambled to secure the exposed seam. The valley floor, already weakened by melting permafrost, became a basin for water racing down from the surrounding hills. Pumps whined at full throttle, pushing 2,200 gallons per minute. Yet the incoming surge was nearly double that rate. The walls of the cut began to melt, layer by layer, sending sheets of mud and ice tumbling like collapsing tombstones. Hoses snapped, lines froze, the portable wash plant sputtered under the weight of sleet. By 1:35 a.m., the pit filled to Parker's waist. He moved fast, building temporary channels with excavator arms, guiding water away from the fragile vein. Every choice carried consequence. One wrong cut could bury millions in gold under landslide. The ground trembled as runoff from the ridge hammered the base of the cut, threatening full collapse. Wind speeds hit 73 kilometers per hour. Visibility dropped to less than 20 meters. Still, he refused to leave. Alone in the storm, he covered the glowing seam with tarps and reinforced mesh, anchoring them with steel rods while ice stung his face. He worked by instinct and memory, the maps in his head clearer than the chaos around him. With every step, cold mud tried to pull him under, each footfall feeling like the land itself was trying to reclaim what he'd taken. His notes later revealed that in those hours, loss estimates fluctuated wildly, from $20 million at risk to over $150 million if the valley wall gave way. No crew, no backup, just Parker fighting the night with nothing but engines, will, and a vein worth more than anything he'd ever dreamt. At 3:08 a.m., the main pump collapsed, choking on ice. Water surged past the perimeter, swallowing markers, sweeping equipment toward the riverbed. A smaller slip tore open the western wall, a deep, gut-clenching crack that echoed through the cut like thunder. Parker forced the excavator forward, carving a relief trench while the storm screamed like a living thing. The trench worked, water shifted, the pressure dropped. Slowly, the cut stabilized. By 5:30 a.m., the worst had passed. The storm thinned into a whispering wind, snowflakes drifting like ash across torn earth. Parker climbed the wall, soaked, freezing, hands numb, breath burning in his lungs. Below him, through the battered tarp, he could still see it, a faint glimmer where fire gold met stone. The vein survived. He had not been tested for strength. He had been tested for worth. The mountain, in its rage, had demanded to know whether he was simply another miner chasing gold, or the one destined to reveal its heart. With the storm gone, the air settled into a heavy calm. Beneath the thawing mud, new readings pulsed through his scanner, stronger, deeper, branching into untouched darkness. The richest channel was still ahead, waiting below ground where the mountain guarded its secret in silence. Within 3 hours, Parker had recovered over 900 ounces, nearly $2.0 million, and he still hadn't tapped the primary channel. He documented each tray, tagging location, depth, and extracted weight. The purity held steady at 95%, a number unheard of outside the richest Australian and South African mines. By midday, the frozen cut looked more like an open vault than a dig site. Gold pooled across mats, scattered as thick flakes, coarse nuggets, and dense crystalline clusters pressed into wet black gravels. He worked with numb hands, skin cracked, eyes burning from hours of cold and strain, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop, because every scoop grew richer. When the full vein was finally flushed and weighed, the tally soared past anything modern Yukon records had ever captured. Hundreds of pounds, then past 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. By February 16th, 2024, at exactly 3:15 a.m., the final weight stopped at an astonishing 4,998 pounds of high-purity gold, worth nearly $348 million. The number felt unreal, a figure big enough to bend belief, a total that instantly rewrote modern mining history. Parker stood in stunned silence. His gloves dripped icy water, his breath trembled in the cold, and for a moment he didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or collapse in gratitude. A lifetime of risk, sacrifice, and obsession had led to this single night. One man, one cut, one storm, and $348 million in raw gold. Later, his own crew would insist no single miner could pull that kind of weight alone. Yet the valley had watched it happen, the machines had watched it, and the mountain had allowed it. Parker's records confirmed everything. 4,998 pounds of gold at roughly 95% purity, stripped from a 52-meter primary vein, branching into multiple sub-channels, averaging nearly 20.8 grams per ton, all in just 38 hours of non-stop work. No rush, not even the Klondike peak of 1897 to 1899, had ever produced that much wealth, that fast, from a single man and a single vein. The story was no longer legend. It was fact. He stayed. The valley felt different, quieter, almost watchful. The roar of machinery had stopped, and only the wind whispered through the spruce. The same ground that had tried to swallow him beneath storm and flood now seemed warm, calm, and strangely alive. He knelt, running his fingers over the fractured rock, tracing the path of the vein that had nearly cost him his life. It was as if the land itself acknowledged what had happened and what it meant. This was more than a discovery. It was a turning point. The Yukon, long feared for its unforgiving winters, its hidden rivers, and its deadly isolation, had yielded a secret so profound it would alter the future of mining. This wasn't the reckless fortune hunting of 1898, when men froze chasing whispers of gold. This was careful work, measured, logged, executed with respect for the land and its limitless age, and the mountains seemed to react. Those who later returned to the site spoke of an unusual stillness, as though the valley had bowed its head. The air felt lighter. The silence wasn't empty, it was reverent, like the land was acknowledging that the right hands had finally uncovered what it had guarded for thousands of years. Even the birds did not return until dawn. Parker looked toward the ridgeline, where the last streak of storm cloud dissolved into pale blue morning. He knew the discovery would bring scientists, miners, investors, and dreamers from across the globe. They would come to study the geology, the gold structure, the impossible purity, and to understand how one man had managed extraction with such care that not a single major collapse or environmental injury marred the find. The event would later be called the Silent Strike of 2024, a discovery made not with teams and noise, but with precision, respect, and an almost spiritual patience. Even after 38 hours without sleep, Parker didn't leave. He walked the perimeter of the cut, mapping expansion zones, tracing where sub-veins might lead deeper into untouched rock. His scanner still read faint anomalies beneath the mountain, smaller branches feeding the main channel, perhaps richer, perhaps more dangerous. But for that moment, there was no rush, no greed, only stillness. The world might soon roar with excitement, but the Yukon felt at peace. Parker closed his notebook, sat on the cold ground, and watched the sky brighten. The mountains, which had tested him with ice and rage, now rested. They had given their answer, and in the quiet, he understood that his journey wasn't over, because beyond the primary vein, deeper shadow readings pulsed faintly, as if something waited beneath, silent and patient, ready for the next man brave enough to listen.